Hey everybody, and welcome to the last IT podcast in the world. It's our second panel edition, and I've got some fabulous guests joining me today. I'm going to have you, in a minute, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves and answer a question. Tell us who you are. If you want to mention your company name, that's totally fine. And then I'll ask you to tag on a little question about it, and then we'll get on to the main topic. But we're here to talk about remote work. Everybody on this call does some level of working remotely from home or wherever, and they probably also go be with people. And we're just going to talk about the lived experience of remote work in this time of lots of people being called back into the office and what our perspectives are, and just share those thoughts together. Can't wait. So without further ado, let's start with the best dressed guest on the pod, Tonya. Tonya, introduce yourself and answer this question. Here's the question. What was your first car? Like that was yours. Okay. You can define this however you want. Like it was your car. I don't know if that meant high school, but like what was your first car?
Okay. My name is Tonya Bricco-Meske. I have been a fully remote worker since 2016. I am a Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central developer. Also been doing that since 2016. I am also a Microsoft MVP for Business Central for the last 6 months. I'm also dubbed the BC Cat Lady. My cats are a part of my blog, 𝗥𝗲𝗺_𝗪𝗀. If you're watching the videos, I have pictures of my cats because I can't be in the office running around or they'll cause havoc. Let's see, my first car was a 1999 Toyota Camry. It was my parents, and then, when I started driving in high school, it became my car. I did have a dinosaur that I super glued to the dashboard, and my sister is shorter than me, so when it became her car, she couldn't see over the dinosaur, so she had to kick it off, and so there were holes in the dashboard from where the dinosaur was, so it was always my car.
Yeah, perfect first car story, especially because it came from your parents. And by the way, if you're on audio only, you might not guess that Tonya's a cat lady, but she's wearing a headset with cat ears on it, pink cat ears, perfect for the persona. The best brand in the dynamic space, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, over to you, Mark.
Fantastic. Yes, I just have a boring company shirt on, so nothing interesting for everybody listening. But I'm Mark Rhodes, Director of Sales and Marketing for Kennie in North America. We provide basically process automation software exclusively for Business Central, like handling invoices and expenses and so forth. And I've been working remotely since 2008, so I feel pretty good that I have some experience in this arena to talk about it. And my first car, this is such a great opener, right? It was a 1984 Isuzu iMark diesel. And for most of the audience, you're going to have to go look that up because that's going back a ways, and that's a pretty unique car. But I got to tell you, it was a trooper. That thing just ran and ran like diesel cars did, so it worked out pretty well. But yeah, getting an early car, of course, you had to tear apart the radio and install a new one, and tear apart the speakers, and
put in your Alpine. Did you put in an Alpine deck?
Yeah,
some Pioneer speakers, of course.
So I've got the scars on my knuckles to prove it that I've replaced a few car stereos. Yeah.
What happened to Isuzu? They're gone forever, right?
Right. I don't know.
Okay. All right. I don't either.
Made pretty good cars. I mean, budget friendly, but yeah.
Okay. Hey, Kenny, welcome. Introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Kennie Nybo Pontoppidan. I am currently working in the product team for Business Central, Dynamics 365 Business Central, as a program manager. I've had a long career in IT with consulting, IT security. I'm originally, I have a master's degree in mathematics with mathematical physics. So I did spin geometry and relativity and quantum foundations for quantum mechanics, mathematical foundations, which I must say is shaky. And my first car is that goes. We have to go a few years back, probably same as Mark. I think we share the same hairdresser and the person who colors our hair. So back in 2001, my wife and I moved to Australia in Brisbane, and we were young. We have no idea about cars. So you guys are American, so cars are kind of something you grow up with. When you go to start in high school, you get a car, and we didn't, but we did buy a car, and just we are friendly, trusty people, so we trusted that the certificate was okay and the car was okay, and we bought it from someone at the university, and it turned out that we took it for a checkup, and the guy said, "Look, this is a lemon. This car is dangerous to drive in." And then we took it from there. We actually took the guy to court and settled that thing.
Wow.
But that was a Ford Focus 3.0 liters, so something that burns. My second car was much better. That was in Connecticut when we moved there. We bought a Nissan Altima with something with a car stereo my kids named the Death Base, which was apparently it had so much power that when you was sitting in the back seat, you shouldn't really turn up the volume much because people would get headaches there. So that was
your pants legs vibrated.
Yeah.
Wow,
that was good.
That means somebody, whoever you bought that from, put in the extra amplifier in the
pretty cool Bose speakers in that one, and
wasted completely on a Nissan Altima. Let's just say it out loud.
Well, I think cruising from our house to the childcare center near Yale, where was on the way back, I was putting on some deathcore in the neighborhoods to show the Yaleys how we roll in Denmark. So I think that was okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, terrific. Great story. Love it. And we're going to go to I don't know what Darrick's first car was, but I'm going to guess. So speaking of Americans, Kenny, Darrick grew up on a sugar beet farm about 30 miles east of me in eastern Colorado. So I'm guessing his first car he started driving when he was 11 or something. I don't know. Anyway, Darrick, what's your first car story?
Yeah, so my first car that I actually owned was a Ford Ranger. I think it was a 1988 four-wheel drive. And it's saved up with my own money, so it was pretty inexpensive and had been through some stuff. If the wind was blowing, if you're in a headwind, it could only go about 45 miles an hour. So it's very sensitive to uphills, headwinds. You know, you go down that big hill by Windsor, you could actually get up to the speed limit, but it was very safe in that regard.
Awesome.
That was my Isuzu. It was 0 to 50 in a minute 20. You know.
Yeah, it'll get there. Just give it a minute.
You guys don't have anything compared to me. First of all, I'm going to tell you about my car, but I do not want you to judge my age by the year of the car I'm about to say, because I didn't get it new. Okay, just keep that in mind. In high school, I bought a 1968 Volkswagen Bug/Beetle from my uncle for a discounted price.
Wow.
Had to pay like monthly payments to the bank and all that. My mom, because she was smart, made me pay for the insurance and the gas and all of that stuff. And I don't know if you know this, but the Volkswagen Bug from that year has about a 52 horsepower engine. And I don't know if you've seen it shaped, but it's not what you would call aerodynamic. And so in the wind, it was like this and like that. And the heater didn't work. And so if I turned the heater on, I got exhaust fumes. So I never had the heater on, and I live in a cold place. So long story short, I had to drive I had it in college. I was going to drive to my sister's house to visit for like Christmas break, and it was bitter cold. And since I was a college male, I hadn't done my laundry in the full semester. So I had all my laundry because I was going to do it at my sister's house, and it kept getting colder and colder. And I just kept putting on more and more dirty clothes from my laundry basket. And when I showed up at her door, she thought, "Man, you have really been working out." And I was just wearing 5 layers of clothes to keep from freezing. So
nice.
That's my car. Awesome. Well, we did it. That was the intro and the banter segment all in one. We're going to take a short break and be right back with the big idea, talking about remote work with this awesome panel after this.
Time for the segment called The Big Idea. The Big Idea. The Big Idea. Serious topic, but we'll still have fun. We'll still have fun with the big idea.
Better IT, hands in the air cause we like IT, that's great. I'm not a famous rapper, but I can help you with technology. I can show you how to pick software, I can show you how to be secure. I can take apart your broken stuff and then put it back together much better.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the last IT podcast in the world and the big idea. We're going to talk about remote work. What's it like to live the remote work life? What are the pros, what are the cons? Look at this panel. We've got Tonya, Mark, Kenny, Darrick, as you know, and we're going to really bat that around a bit. Let me say this just as boilerplate at the very beginning. I want to stipulate, and you guys probably agree, that remote work or hybrid work isn't right for every job, for every role, for every personality, for every career stage. I think we should talk about career stages and the differences there eventually.
Yeah.
But we know that it's not one size fits all in this economy for everybody, for every role, and we admit that. And we also admit that it's kind of a privilege that we're at our stages or whatever in our roles that we get to work remotely. We don't take it for granted. It's a very nice thing, and that not everyone gets to do that. And I think it's maybe something some people aspire to, and they can probably get there. So with that as boilerplate and intro, and you guys can go wherever you want, I want to ask you this first question. Some of you have already dipped into this a little bit. I want to ask your remote work origin story, and we can keep these kind of tight. But when you first, like, the light bulb went off for you that you did some remote work and it kind of worked out, and you thought, this is probably a good thing, or we could make this work. And I'll help you. Like, my first experience on that was almost like proto remote work. It was before remote work. And it's when I had kids in junior high, and I was working in an office 5 days a week, years and years ago. And they were starting to have things like track meets in the spring, and I was anchored to a desk. And I got, are you ready for this? My boss gave me a BlackBerry. Physical keyboard. Physical QWERTY keyboard. And we made a deal that as long as he could stay in touch with me, or I could answer some basic emails, I could pop out of the office and I could go attend track meets and go to other school events, which wasn't all that often, and it worked out very well. Now, that's not fully remote work, but you can sort of see the beginnings of the ability to be untethered from your physical location there. And I've got other stories to tell, but what was anyone, and I'm going to sort of throw it to people, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to throw it to Darrick first, and then we'll bat it around. Like, do you remember, like, when the light bulb first went off for you for remote work, what that was like, Darrick?
Yeah, like, I remember, like, seeing people that had that opportunity, that maybe were contractors or consultants, and they were doing that and kind of wondering, gosh, that would be nice. I wish I was in a position to do that. And then my first significant exposure was the company I worked for was expanding and ran out of office space. And for a while, they booted some of us developers to, like, a chemical plant down the road, which wasn't really with who we worked with anyway. And then they sort of were running out of space there as well, and said, well, I guess you can just work from home. And I started doing that and really liked it. And I didn't get to do it continuously from that moment, but that was the first time I was able to wake up in the morning, walk down the hall to an office that was a spare bedroom, and have that experience. And it was great. I was around my kids. Life was better. So that made me want to do it more.
Yeah, terrific. Thanks. Kenny, how about you?
I think my first experience was actually not myself, but I was a manager for a development team, and two of my developers worked. In America, it's not far; it's like 3-hour commute, but in Denmark, that's the other way, like other side of the country. And they would be partly working from home and come into the office a couple of times a week. And I discovered that this actually worked fine. I mean, they were as productive or even more productive than their colleagues. So we all did some remote or all remote work during COVID. I think a different story I want to tell is when I first moved to the States, because our product team is based in Denmark, in Lyngby. And 3 years ago, I moved with my family to North Dakota, here to Fargo. And that's remote in many different ways. It's also remote in time zone. So I'm actually working, or was working back then, and I'm back now, 7-hour time difference from the team. So what does that mean? Not only remote, but also it means that half of their working day, I'm sleeping. Like I wake up early. I start working 6 a.m. So I kind of have some time together with the team. But what this means on my productivity is that if you imagine a world where you cut away 50% of all meetings and then convert that to zone time, and like somehow I still managed to do the work I was supposed to do with 50% less meetings. I just had a lot more time to do work on where I could focus. And I think that's not remote, but maybe remote is also something that can change a meeting culture there, where some meetings shouldn't really be meetings. They shouldn't even be Teams meetings. They should just be emails. And how much productivity you can gain from cutting away some of this. It doesn't mean that you have to cut away everything, because you also you lose the social part of working together. But that was interesting for me, and I had a very productive year, and this year as well, when I'm back, I feel I get a lot of things done.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna come back to something you said when we get through with this round and drill into something you said. I think that's a really great point. How about you, Mark? When did the light bulb go off?
Well, I'm very fortunate. It just kind of fell in my lap. And so when I started working for the user groups back in 2008, it was basically a remote organization. It had a base and it had some local employees, but it was crafted out of the box to be a remote organization. And so it was all about finding the best person for the job back then, right? And so you take off the barrier of having to be local, you can find some really great talent, right? And especially when it doesn't need to be, in this case. So much of what we were doing was online already. And so it was just a natural fit. I got the opportunity to start there and never look back. And like Darrick, it was glorious, right? The fact that I don't have to waste 2 hours of my life every day sitting in traffic was a beautiful thing. Absolutely beautiful. And I'm not a morning person either. So to be able to roll out of bed and come down, turn on the coffee maker and get to work and save all that time in the morning, it was just incredible as well. But it's interesting. You know what? I was thinking about the origin story, and I realized I did consulting for 10, 15 years before that, and that's essentially remote work. Now, if I wasn't at a client site, I was supposed to go into the office. Some days I didn't, because I really needed to be heads down focused, writing a report or something, and I'd work at home too. But most of the time, you're at a client site, and that's working remotely too. So I think there are different flavors of it that we don't even really think about sometimes.
For sure. Thank you for that. Tonya? Yeah. What was your first inkling?
So like Darrick, I was kind of observing other people who worked in consulting. My mom was a remote developer. So I went back to school for software development, and I got an internship, same company she was working at, and it was fully remote. It was kind of comical. I was working an order entry job, and I went out in the parking lot and had my phone interview, just a phone call with her bosses. And they're like, "Oh, we want to offer you an internship." And I'm like a summer internship, because it was 4 hours away. Like, would I move there? And they're like, "No, you can work from home. Like, you've never met me. You don't know anything about me." Obviously, my mom's, work ethic spoke about I could probably figure out the whole work from home thing as well. But, just jumping into working remotely, being self-sufficient, being able to be a self-starter. I actually had a friend who was an intern with me as well, and he did not do well with the whole work from home, work remotely, having to keep yourself on task type thing. Yeah. But for me personally, I suffer from migraines. So I was actually talking to someone at work that, if I don't really feel well, I want to sit with the lights off. I don't want to have to interact with people. Like, I just want to get my work done. I have the ability to do that at home, and no one knows that at work, that, you know, I'm sitting here with my ice pack on my head or my heating blanket or whatever. So I think having that flexibility of being able to take your kids to school, or, you know, run to appointments, or, you know, even if, you know, if you're under the weather, if you have a cold, you don't feel bad, you know, sitting at home being all stuffy, as opposed to going in the office. You'd be like, okay, I have to go sit in the corner by myself because I don't want to get everybody else sick.
Yeah, terrific.
I
Awesome.
think about that a lot. I never take a sick day, right? Because
Right.
how sick do I need to be that I just can't sit here and press a few keys on my keyboard? It just, you know.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I've taken less than 2 sick days in 3 or 4 years remote, where it's
Right.
you're just sick enough that you just don't want to be doing anything. That's a great point.
Yeah,
Well,
and I
you're
don't-
Americans, so you also don't take a holiday, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we don't get them. Yeah, no.
We're gonna talk about the problem of work-life balance with the remote, but that's terrific. Let me finish my origin really quickly. Other than the sort of proto BlackBerry, like, it was really COVID for me, like, where I first had the opportunity. And during COVID, we did a Dynamics Business Central implementation project for a manufacturing plant down in Austin, Texas, fully remote. We parachuted in there the week before it went live. Everything else had been done over video call, 100%, at a manufacturing facility. And we landed, and that project slapped. It did great. And I thought, holy crap, like, if you can do this fully remotely, you can do a lot of things fully remotely. And I'll beep the word crap for you, Mark, because I know that's a double standard. I want to do a couple things. There's a couple things that have been mentioned already, and this is what I mean by us being organic. Kenny, when you were talking about your experience, here's this big theme I have. We're going to jump into the deep end of the pool, and on this one, I'm not going to call names. I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and then you guys jump in with your thoughts. So if we go back in the Wayback Machine, and we are all transported into the 1920s, and we're all employed, and we are standing on a conveyor belt in a factory, our work is 100% synchronous. The object comes out of the chute, and I put a screw into it, and Tonya paints it, and Mark does a quality inspection, blah, blah, blah. And it's like that. And the idea of physical proximity and synchronous work has never changed. And remote work should cause companies to rethink the manner in which we do work. It's not synchronous. And so I really love the idea of asynchronous work, where I might be working on something when I can, which might be at 8 o'clock at night if I choose to. That might be when I choose to. And I might choose to use some of the features like delay the delivery of this Teams message or this email to my team in the morning, and I do fire and forget, and they work on it. There's all kinds of ways to do asynchronous work, so we don't all have to be in the same building at the same conference room table away. There are other examples too, but my big beef is that we live in an age where remote work is a reality and it's happening, but our company leadership and the way we think about work in the broader economy is still tied to this. We have to be in the same room, and I have to say this, and you have to respond. And we're inventing a new way of working. But I think this group is inventing the way, and people like us, but a lot of leaders don't get it yet. So, broader topic, like, how are we going to have to change in our company and our company leadership about thinking about new ways to work? If I can't see someone working, how do I know they're working? All those big topics go.
Who was the
okay?
the organizational behavior guy back in the 20s that did all the time motion studies? What was that guy's name? David, surely you know this.
Taylor or?
I don't.
Taylor sounds
And so,
right.
but it was all around this, right? You have to be present. You have to be able to see what's happening, right? And you're absolutely right. You hit upon it. That's been foundational management concept for 100 years around the American workforce, especially. So here's the thing. There's pros and cons to everything in life, and there's pros and cons here, and it works in some situations, not in others. I honestly think management doesn't have a choice anymore. Millennials and Gen Zers, whatever the youngest workforce is, they don't want to put up with that. That's just not how they operate. That doesn't make sense to them. And I think we're facing the tide where you've got to provide this opportunity, or you're not going to get the best talent anymore. Pretty straightforward.
Kenny, were you going to add something?
Yeah, no, yeah. I was actually thinking of different. Not that I don't agree with you, Mark. There, I do, but I think it, as a leader, maybe you should also revisit why are you thinking this way.
Exactly.
Is there a trust issue? Like that would be my first thought here. So why are you not trusting that your employers will, like, why do you have this idea that they would just slack off on the sofa if they work from home? And then connected to that, if you think about Taylorism and measuring impact and measuring, I mean, if you have ways to see the impact of a person working from home and measure kind of the work they put in, not the hours or the lines of code, but the actual things that are produced in the end. I mean, if Tonya can work from home and produce the equivalent or better than her peers, then who cares if she works from home? But of course, if Tonya, not Tonya, but here Mark, if Mark is not performing and working from home, maybe there's a different conversation that needs to happen. But I think it's all first thing as a leader is trust.
Yes. It was Frederick Taylor, by the way, nicely done. But that's what it comes down to. You're not hiring the right people if that's the problem, right?
Yeah, I think if you're a manager, that's a red flag if you don't have another way to measure productivity and effectiveness of your team than butts in seats. Like, I think that's a red flag to me that you've got to have some other way to know, or is your team getting their work done? Are they accomplishing their tasks, in code? Are they getting pull requests out? And is it the team's red, yellow, green dots that we have if we're online? That seems to be the new standard, right? We're just looking at your color of your dot.
Yeah. I'll circle it back around to with taking time off. A lot of companies are more of that self-managed time off, that flexible time off, wherever that policy may be. And I think that there's a lot of people who struggle with, well, someone's going to abuse that policy. Like Kenny was saying, there's other ways to measure, are you getting your work done? As a consultant, I have a billable goal that I have to reach every year. Right. So if, I want to work 12, 14-hour days now and take an extra, day or two off in the summer, like that's fine as long as I'm getting my billable work done. But I think there's a lot of people who they struggle seeing that correlation. I was talking to someone and they said, like the younger generation, they're taking off of work because like their cat is sick, or, I'm having surgery, like foot surgery. I work remotely, but I need 2 weeks off. And this person was asking them, well, why are you taking off? Like, what are you going to be doing for 2 weeks? You're going to be sitting on the couch, like watching TV. Like, yes, you can do that, but why wouldn't you, log into work and you have nothing else to do and then enjoy your time off later? So I think it's just some interesting things to think about when we're talking about different generations of people working remotely.
I just want to add to that, Tonya. Here at Microsoft last year in the US, everything related to, at least in the engineering part of the organization, there's no time registration. There's no registration of days off or sick or anything anymore. You just deliver what you need to deliver, and if you want to take off 3 months of vacation, you do that. Maybe that's impacting your salary or your bonus, but I mean, if you can deliver in the ways that matter to you, you do that. Contrast to Denmark, where it's a different regulation, the different laws, local laws. But I'm still on the Teams channel with my coworkers, and from time to time, we have these flames of threads on Teams about the time registration system for vacation, where someone is missing 0.2 like days and what to do and HR and blah 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 blah. And I'm just reading that and think, I don't have to. I mean, I'm pretty sure Microsoft is happy about this, because I think the reality is probably that people work more, but I still like the flexibility of and ultimate trust that hey, if you need to do your thing, you do your thing.
Yep.
Yeah, let me. So Darrick and I officially, as the pod, we're against all of these sort of spyware software things that take screen grabs to prove that people are being productive, or people thinking that the presence indicator is like the thing you can track. We're 100% against all that, because we think managers should do a better job of managing. If you've got that title and that pay, you should know what your people are working on. You should be in touch with them once in a while, at least once a week, probably on a one-on-one, not to check in on them, just to like make sure they've got what they need. And you should know what their objectives are for the week, the month, the year, to Tonya's point. And you should, and if you do that, if you really earn your pay as a manager or leader of people to try to get work done for your company, you don't need all those onerous things. You don't need time tracking. You don't need stupid software, that's going to get someone in trouble. So we're against all that stuff, and we're pro better managers all around in general, I would say.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Good.
So I guess.
Go ahead, Tonya.
I was just going to ask a question, because it kind of came up, especially for me working remotely. I was attending a meeting with a coworker, or a group of coworkers, and someone directly on my team didn't show up for the meeting, and they're asking me, where is this person? And I said, I don't know. I keep track of me and my cats, what they're up to. I don't know where anybody else is or what they're doing. I'd assume something came up, but he didn't accept the meeting invite. So in a like remote work situation, is there kind of those work courtesies where, accept meeting invites, or do I let hey, I'm stepping out for a long lunch, or I have an appointment. Like, I'll put everything on my calendar. Like, hey, I might be away because I have to go, run and do something real quick. But if you need me, I'm always available on Teams, on my phone, or I'll get back to you when I can. It's not that I'm worried that someone's babysitting me, that when I got my hair done, I'm going to go log on later and get my work done.
Yeah, let's talk about all those signals we give to each other about our availability. Like, anyone want to chime in on Tonya's sort of point or question there?
Excellent point, right? I think we're even more conscious that we're part of a team when we're working remotely, because you don't see the folks, right? And so you want to make sure they know you're there to support them. And if you are going to be out for an extended time, it's nice to give them the heads up. But again, hire the right people who feel committed to the team effort and are goal and achievement oriented, and are concerned about driving the team forward and the organization forward, and that stuff's that works out on its own.
I think also that I think that there are probably some kind of discipline needed, like Tonya also said, that, for instance, like, what does it mean if I accept a meeting, or if and maybe what I personally try to do is either accept or decline, or to tentatively accept every single meeting, so that people know kind of what they can expect from me. I also think that, especially if you work, like, if you're not the lone cowboy consultant, but actually work as part of a remote team, that there are probably some interaction points of meetings where it is where everyone is supposed to be there, and just to get some team belonging. We do that in my team. We have both a kind of a planning meeting every week, and we do have a learning sharing social meeting every week as well, where even though we work remote, some of us, we actually meet around the coffee machine virtually. And these, for me, these are really precious moments, because these are the times where I actually get to interact with my team, even though I work so far away from them.
How's the structure of that? I'm fascinated by that because I've tried to do that a little bit in my last couple teams, and I find I'm just so focused on getting everything done during the day. We don't then take that kind of time, and I do appreciate that. Right? Call you.
People can't see you, Mark. You have to say it with your words.
Oh, yes, David? What?
You did say it. I can
Thank
hear
you
Mark.
No, you just said, okay, terrific. Thank you. Anyway, thank you for calling on me, Mark. I appreciate it.
Well, I was asking a question back to Kenny, but David, you apparently have something to say.
I'm jumping in. During COVID, we set up, I was leading a department of a corporate IT. I'm now a solo fractional CIO, but I was leading a team, and we put on our calendar 2 times a week, 15-minute thing called water cooler. We called it the water cooler. Coffee machine is what Kenny said. Mm-hmm. And the point was, it was optional. Anyone could join anytime they wanted. You couldn't talk about work. It was, what did you do this weekend? What are your cats up to? What movie did you see? Or I guess since it was COVID, how did your sourdough recipe work out? Did you buy a chessboard because you saw the Queen's Gambit? All those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
And so literally we were intentional about literally putting those on the calendar, and it worked pretty well. Sometimes there'd be 2 people, sometimes there'd be 4, sometimes there'd be 5. There was almost never nobody. And again, I think Kenny used the word precious even, that those are where you build your team, is when you're talking about your lives and your interests. And if you try to tack them on at the beginning of every meeting that's a serious meeting, it can be difficult. I'd love to know anyone else's thoughts on that.
At RSM, we have once a month, like an hour that we take, and we play games online. So it's code names, or it's like Darrick phone. So like draw battle, so everybody's participating and playing a game. So it's like we're together doing something fun, but we're all remote. And so for me, that's like very exciting because I'm always 100% remote. A lot of my other coworkers are, hybrid, where they go into the office sometimes. We also do like a coffee chat with the combined BC team. So it's anyone who's support, functional, technical. And then the organizer splits us off into little pods or group rooms. I'm not exactly sure how to do it in teams, but breakout sessions. And so you get to know different people that you don't normally work with. So especially, working on different teams, being able to interact with people that I would never talk to otherwise is really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, when you mentioned COVID, because we were working remote back then, we had one of these Teams meetings where we checked in every day, and we talked, or we could talk, and that Teams meeting is still ongoing. Like, that chat has been open since 2019 or whatever it was, and this is where we kind of drop silly things and put in, did you see this video, or which router should I buy, and so on. And this is really interesting because in these, 5, 6 years, we have a lot of new employees who are asking, what's this chat about? And they need to be added manually by someone so that they can be part of this, relic from the past where we share the odd things. And I love this chat. It's super fun to see what people dump in there.
Mm-hmm. Terrific.
And we do a daily team meeting where sometimes we'll have a little bit of personal stuff up front, but I do firmly believe in that daily get-together, because we're talking about, I'm dealing with this, I've got a question for you on that, and it's just a concise way for us to all get together and get all that knocked out and remain coordinated on everything that we're doing. We try to keep to a half hour, but we do get into some details, but it's pretty helpful that way. So I like that we do that. We don't do so much on the social thing. We probably could do more of that. I really like those suggestions.
Yeah, we do with the software development especially, we do the Scrum or Agile stand-up every day, and that the transition of that from being in person, that felt kind of superfluous and why are we doing this? I still think it's important, but it had the vibe that maybe this isn't that important. This is just a procedure. And now that we're remote, it's essential. And it's probably I think from a management standpoint, it's the most important thing to keep tabs on what everybody's doing, especially in software development, and to have that collaboration. I mean, I think that's one of the most important things we do. My prior employer tried to do they did like a virtual happy hour for a while. That felt kind of awkward. Like, they were really generous. They would buy us, we could DoorDash food, and but we're all eating in front of each other on cameras, and it's just
done that too. That's kind of
weird.
Like
that was a nice gesture, but that was not a great experience.
I love this conversation because it's so important, because people worry about team building and culture, and that's exactly what you're all talking about. You're building that. And I believe it's possible on video. There are probably some limitations, and maybe you get some more in person. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but this idea of building affinity, one of my favorite words, to where we begin to care more about each other as human beings, which is very critical to productivity and team building and things like that. I love this conversation about that. I think and by the way, on this call, I have increased my affinity for each of you because you've told me a really neat story about yourself. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute. I didn't know that Tonya had migraines, so I have compassion and understanding, all super important how we work together. Hey everybody, thanks for listening to part 1 of this fascinating conversation about remote work with Kenny, Tonya, Mark, and Darrick. I hope you'll tune in for part 2 of the discussion, where we discuss a variety of topics like how to build trust in a remote environment, how often should our cameras be on, using all the collaboration tools to enhance remote work, how to avoid being always on and getting good work-life balance in a remote work setting. And then we have a kind of a fun pretend TED Talk where we pretend to give a TED Talk to remote work skeptical C-level leaders. Finally, Kenny invites us all to his summer house in Denmark, and then we teach him how to throw a curveball. Again, thanks for listening to the podcast, and I hope you'll catch part 2 of the remote work panel coming soon to a podcast near you. Thanks.